Good morning. This is your humble host, Jamal Baraka for GT Media Reviews, and today I'm broadcasting from Detroit. It's pretty cold. We've reached the ninth circle of hell in Dante's Inferno, and it's only going to get worse. This is a different hell from the hell I usually live in Detroit, but hey, we'll make the best of it. Today we're going to be talking about Bill Maher and his response to the controversial Stan Lee comics. He tells fans to grow up. Now, before I get into my opinion on this, the one thing to consider, more important than anything else when looking into his statements, Bill Maher is a shock jock. He's not too much different from Howard Stern, and he's also a troll. So the tactics he uses when he makes his recordings aren't too dissimilar to someone like Donald Trump, who on his Twitter feed basically uses that to give his base red meat, to secure his base, also to troll audiences. So with comic fans, we just lost our godfather with Stan Lee. You know, he may not have been the founder of comics, but it's a touchy subject because Stan Lee is probably our biggest and most memorable featured artist, creator. So on that note, I want to say rest in peace, Stan Lee, and we can have a moment of silence. Okay, back to it. So before we get into my opinion again, the next thing I want to bring up is that Bill Maher is like 63 years old. So when he makes his statements, you also have to consider that there is a huge generational gap here. So the average comic fan is about 30 years old, 30, 40 years old right now. And the average MCU movie fan is probably late teens, early 20s, but you have a range of audiences from maybe 5 years old to 80. So looking at his statements from that perspective, you have a generation gap, and you have somebody that probably never was really into comic books because he's not plugged into it. All he sees is these kids are out here making a big deal about this stuff, and I never was into it because I used to read blah 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 blah. So getting into his statements, and I'm using as a guide, I'm going to use this Entertainment Weekly article I'm pulled up because I don't even watch Bill Maher's show anymore. He's more of a pretentious asshole, and I can see through his gimmick, so I don't really feed the beast, and I don't like feeding trolls. The article I'm looking at is from Entertainment Weekly, and the writer is Nick Romano. He wrote this on the 26th, so the quotes that I'm pulling from are coming from him, and I just want to give him credit because I'm a nice guy. So Bill Maher, he says, hey, we're talking about everlasting childhood here. And he says, he clarified his initial blog. He wrote that America is in a deep, deep mourning for a man who inspired millions to, I don't know, watch a movie, I guess. There was no way an attack on Mr. Lee, who took the occasion of his death to express my dismay at people who think that comic books are literature and superhero movies are great cinema, who in general are stuck in everlasting childhood. Bragging that you are all about the Marvel Universe is like boasting that your mother still pins mittens on your sleeve, he continues. You can, if you want, like the exact same thing you liked when you were 10, Mr. Maher added, but if you do, you need to grow up, and that is the point of my blog. I'm not glad that Stan Lee is dead. I'm sad that you're still alive. So the language here is very incendiary. So he knows what he's doing when he's writing this. This is meant to trigger you. So what I would say is that if you're a comic book fan and you're listening to Bill Maher, it's not even real. It's not even coming from a real place. So just don't take it to heart. He also says that, can we stop pretending like the writing in comic books is so good? Oh please, every superhero movie is the same thing. A person who doesn't have powers gets them, has to figure out how they work, and then we have to find a glowing thing. On this front, I actually totally agree with Bill Maher. Now, I'm pushing 40. In my 30 plus years of being a comic book fan, I can say that I have The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. I have Watchmen by Alan Moore as probably the only books that I would say, well, maybe if I was a professor, maybe I would do like a lecture on those books. Maybe, possibly, but even then, I think there's probably better options of discussing the human condition. In recent years, I would say that I have Brian K. Vaughan's Y the Last Man. I also have The Vision from Tom King. But outside of that, I don't see comics as being a huge deal other than they're popular right now. So I may get backlash for saying that, but I really don't. I don't feel that Bill Maher's statements are too outrageous other than being incendiary. On a base level, I think he's correct. Just closing out this article, he says, then again, there's nothing wrong with a man writing comic books. He said, there's something wrong with adults thinking they're profound. Now, I've had books that I've read in the past. I think the most recent book that got a reaction out of me was Tom King's Vision. That was a few years ago. It was like the concluding scene between Vision and his wife. I'm not going to spoil the book, but there was a touching moment there. But outside of that, I've not had many visceral reactions to any comic book outside of just being entertained one way or another. I can either say this book was good, this book was bad, but I'm not going to go on a crusade about any book. What you see in popular culture now is that you see a lot of actors in the fandom that treat these mediums as being something much bigger than they are. I don't see anything profound in Black Panther. I don't see anything profound in any of the Avengers movies. And I think the most complex superhero movies may have been Captain America Winter Soldier and The Dark Knight. But even then, I think there's probably 10 or 20 films out there that are much more profound on the subject matter than those movies. Not to knock superhero movies, but I just think that it's a generational thing. Again, I'm pushing 40. Somebody in their 20s will probably grow up on this stuff and feel like, hey, these movies are absolutely amazing and the cornerstone of our culture. But the same thing was said about 50 years ago when Westerns were around and were ruling the cinema. And we don't even talk about Westerns anymore. So, the other thing I wanted to touch on is that Joe Quesada came out of nowhere asking Bill Maher to be his +1 at a charity event. And to me, this was more outrageous than the stuff that Bill Maher said. Now, I don't really care about Bill Maher one way or another, but Joe Quesada is like one of the biggest names in comics. I don't think he's actually out here putting out books anymore, but the issue that I have with the statements that he's making is that this dude is basically crapping all over your profession, your medium. So if he's saying that if you're 10 years old, you shouldn't be reading comic books, and here you are, a 50-year-old man making comic books for an audience that pushes 30, I would actually say you should be out here defending the medium and saying, hey, the comics are for everyone. You remember, I don't know how plugged in my audience is, but a few months ago, a lot of professionals came out and said the comics are for everyone. That means kids and adults. So when you have somebody like Joe Quesada kissing up to somebody who's crapping all over your fan base, it's unacceptable. And it's garbage. It's one of those things where it's like, dude, man up. You know, grow some balls. And it's just like the guy that goes to work every day to feed his family, and then he comes home and he's like totally unappreciated, or the wife that's at home as a housewife, and then people that women that are in professional jobs are saying, hey, you know, she's just a housewife. No, I'm taking care of my household and I have kids that I'm putting through school. You're not going to disrespect me or my job or my chosen path in life. And it's the height of arrogance here. So I'm not incensed by Bill Maher because I feel like Bill Maher is just doing his job, but I also feel like Joe Quesada and people like him that defend this stuff are not doing their jobs. And that's part of the reason that people are not buying comics anymore. Because if the creators and the publishers are out here and they don't take the medium serious, why should anybody else? And on that note, that's the end of this video. Again, this is Jamal Baraka from GT Media Reviews. You can hit the bell and like my channel. I usually post to my YouTube channel and my Facebook channel at GT Media Reviews, or my blog at gtmediareviews.com, or you can follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, or Facebook at Jamal is Trash. I'm conservative and I'm naturally opposed to a lot of the stuff that Bill Maher says. I don't really find him funny. Sometimes he may say something I get a chuckle out of, and I don't take him seriously. And I don't think anybody should take Bill Maher seriously. I don't think anybody should take a lot of people in the media seriously, and that's part of the reason why I don't get pissed off by anything. I get pissed off by people like Joe Quesada who says that Bill Maher can be his plus one. Won't you extend an olive branch to people that you're out here bashing every day, like Richard Maher or Ethan Van Sciver or something? Those are the people you should take as a plus one, so you can try to heal the fan base, not kiss up the people that don't give a damn one way or another. And that's the addendum to my video. You all have a great day. I appreciate you kicking it with me for a few minutes, and I'll be back with another video later down the line. Thanks. Appreciate it.